He roundhouse kicked his way into America's living rooms every Saturday night and never looked back. For 8 seasons, Walker, Texas Ranger was the kind of show that made you feel like justice was one spinning heel strike away, and CBS loved every single ratings point that came with it. But underneath all the cowboy hats, Cherokee wisdom, and slow motion punches, there was a stranger, messier, and frankly more fascinating story playing out behind the scenes. And trust me, some of these facts hit harder than a Norris roundhouse. Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is Old TV Cinema. Here's something that will make you do a double take. Walker, Texas Ranger, almost didn't have Chuck Norris in it at all. Now, before you close the video in outrage, let me explain. When CBS and producer Leslie Grafe were first developing the concept in the early 1990s, Chuck Norris was not the first name on the call sheet. The original conversations reportedly circled around other action-oriented television personalities who had already proven themselves on the small screen. Names were floated, meetings were had, the usual Hollywood tap dancing occurred. Now, we're not going to pretend we have a signed memo from a CBS executive with a list of names on it, because we don't. But what is documented is that the show's concept went through significant development before Norris came aboard, and that the character of Cordell Walker was shaped considerably around who Chuck Norris actually was as a person, not just as an action star. His Cherokee heritage, his martial arts background, his particular brand of quiet, square-jawed righteousness. All of that became Walker, because Norris was Walker. It's hard to imagine anyone else in that truck driving down a Texas highway looking mildly irritated at crime. The show and the man became so intertwined that separating them now feels almost philosophically impossible. Kind of like trying to imagine a world where someone else played Magnum P.I. Sure, technically it could have happened, but could it really? Okay, so Walker, Texas Ranger is set in Dallas, Texas. Everyone knows that. The Texas Ranger headquarters, the dusty highways, the wide open spaces that practically scream everything is bigger here, including the felons. But here is the thing. The pilot episode, which aired in April of 1993, was not entirely shot in Dallas. Significant portions of that first episode were filmed in and around Nogales, Arizona, and the surrounding desert regions. Why? Well, the simple and slightly unglamorous answer is logistics and budget. Getting a full production off the ground in a new city takes time, and CBS wanted to see how the concept played before committing to a full Texas-based production infrastructure. So, the pilot was essentially a proof of concept, shot wherever the locations made sense financially and visually. And honestly, Arizona desert looks a lot like Texas desert if you don't look too closely at the license plates. By the time the show was greenlit for a full series run, production shifted to the Dallas and Fort Worth area, where it would remain for essentially the rest of its run. The show eventually became such a presence in the region that it was genuinely woven into the local television identity. But that first episode? Partially an Arizona impersonation of Texas, which, now that I think about it, is kind of a weird origin story for a show that was so aggressively, unapologetically Texan. Here is a fact that surprises people, but probably shouldn't. Chuck Norris was not just the star of Walker, Texas Ranger. He was a creative force on the show in a way that went well beyond showing up on set and throwing kicks. Norris negotiated script approval as part of his contract, meaning that no episode of Walker's Texas Ranger went into production without Chuck Norris signing off on the content. Now, in Hollywood, that kind of leverage is usually reserved for the biggest names in the biggest rooms, and Norris used it. He reportedly pushed back on storylines he felt were too dark, too gratuitous, or inconsistent with the values he wanted Walker to represent. This was a man who genuinely believed in what the show stood for, and was not shy about making sure the scripts reflected that. Some writers found it creatively limiting, others respected it, but either way, it meant that Walker, Texas Ranger, had a remarkably consistent moral compass across 8 seasons and over 200 episodes, which is honestly rarer than you'd think in network television. Most shows that run that long start contradicting themselves by season 4. Walker stayed Walker. And that is directly traceable to one man with a very particular vision and a contract clause that made sure everyone knew it. Okay, Raise your hand if you can hear the Walker Texas Ranger theme song right now, just from reading these words. Eyes of a ranger are upon you. Yeah, that's what I thought. That song is lodged in an entire generation's brain, like a very patriotic earworm that absolutely nobody asked for. And yet somehow, everyone is fine with. You're humming it right now. Don't lie to me. But here's what most people don't know about it. The theme, titled Eyes of the Ranger, was co-written by Chuck Norris himself. Yes, the man who spent 8 seasons roundhouse kicking criminals in the face also co-wrote the show's theme song. I want you to sit with that for a second. Most actors show up, hit their marks, and go home. Chuck Norris showed up, hit his marks, hit several stuntmen, and then went home and wrote a country song. That is a different level of commitment entirely. Norris worked with songwriter Bruce Rowland to craft something that felt authentically country, authentically Texan, and authentically Walker. And honestly, they nailed it. The song became so associated with the show that it was essentially inescapable on CBS Saturday nights throughout the 1990s. If you were anywhere near a television between 1993 and 2001 on a Saturday evening, that melody found you. There was no avoiding it. It was like Texas itself reached through the screen and grabbed you by the collar. What's interesting is that the musical identity of Walker was something Norris cared about deeply from the very beginning. He wanted the show to feel rooted in a specific cultural and regional identity, and the theme song was part of establishing that from the very first note. This wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't something the network slapped together in a studio over a Tuesday afternoon. Norris was involved because he wanted the music to mean something, the same way he wanted everything about Walker to mean something. And look, I just have to say it out loud. The fact that Chuck Norris co-wrote a country theme song and the general public just accepted the theme completely without question is one of the most gloriously 1990s things I have ever encountered in my entire life. And I was there. I lived through the 1990s. I had the bowl cut to prove it. Let's talk about the Ram truck for a second, because honestly, it deserves its own fact, and I will not be taking questions on that decision. Walker's Dodge Ram pickup truck was not just a prop. It was not background scenery. It was not a vehicle that happened to be parked outside when they needed something to drive away from an explosion in. It was a recurring character. Full stop. If the show had opening credits that listed the cast, the Ram should have had its own card. Dodge came on board as a sponsor partner for the show fairly early in its run. And what they got in return was something that modern marketing departments would absolutely lose their minds over. Walker's truck became one of the most recognizable vehicles in Saturday night television. We're talking about a level of product integration that made the whole arrangement feel less like a corporate sponsorship deal and more like the show genuinely, deeply believed that Cordell Walker would drive nothing else on this earth. And you believed it too. Every single week. Here's the thing though, it worked, really worked. The image of Walker behind the wheel of that Ram, cruising down a Texas highway with that particular expression on his face that said, "I am calm right now, but someone is about to have a very bad afternoon," became genuinely iconic. Dodge reportedly saw a measurable impact on truck sales among Walker's core demographic during the show's peak years in the mid-1990s, which means Chuck Norris indirectly sold a significant number of pickup trucks to a significant number of people who wanted to feel like a Texas Ranger on their morning commute to an office job in suburban America. And you know what? I completely understand those people. I am not here to judge anyone who bought a Dodge Ram in 1996 because Walker made it look cool. That is just effective television doing exactly what effective television is supposed to do. If I am going to be influenced into a major purchasing decision by a network drama, I at least want it to be a show where the main character has a black belt, a Cherokee heritage, and a personal moral code that he has never once compromised. That is honestly more than most car commercials offer you. That is just good advertising dressed up as a roundhouse kick. Here's one that gets buried under all the retrospective success. Walker, Texas Ranger nearly didn't make it to season 2. After its debut season in 1993, the show's ratings were decent but not spectacular, and there were genuine conversations at CBS about whether to renew it. The network was not entirely sure they had a long-term hit on their hands. What changed? A few things. First, the show found its footing in terms of tone and pacing as it went along. Early Walker episodes could feel a little uneven, like the production was still figuring out exactly what kind of show it wanted to be. Was it a straight action drama? A procedural? Something with a little more character depth? The answer eventually became all three, but it took a minute to get there. Second, and this is the part that matters most in network television, the Saturday night audience that did show up was extraordinarily loyal. Walker viewers watched Walker. They didn't flip channels. They planned their Saturday evenings around it. And that kind of audience loyalty, even at moderate numbers, is something a network pays attention to. By season 2, the ratings started climbing. By season 3, Walker was a genuine CBS institution, but it came closer to an early cancellation than most fans ever knew. Jimmy Trivette, Walker's partner, tech-savvy, good-humored, and the kind of moral counterbalance that every stoic cowboy hero secretly needs, whether he would ever admit it or not, was played by Clarence Gilliard for 8 seasons. And Gilliard was genuinely great in the role. Like, genuinely great. The kind of great where you stop noticing the performance because the character just feels real, which is actually the highest compliment you can pay an actor, and one that does not get handed out nearly enough. But the road to casting him was not exactly a straight line. Gilliard had previously appeared in shows like Different Strokes and had a memorable role in Die Hard, where he played Theo, the tech-savvy member of Hans Gruber's operation, helping coordinate the Nakatomi Plaza heist from a computer terminal while wearing a Santa hat. So he had credentials, solid ones. But the Walker producers reportedly went through a fairly extensive search for the right actor to play Trivette before landing on Gilliard, and it is worth understanding why that search mattered so much. The chemistry between Walker and Trivette was always going to be the emotional engine of the entire show. Not the action sequences, not the cases, the partnership. Walker needed a partner who could humanize him without undermining him. Someone who could bring warmth and humor into scenes without making Walker look like he was babysitting. And someone who could hold their own opposite Chuck Norris without simply disappearing into the background of whatever was happening. That is a very specific set of requirements, and finding the right person to meet all of them simultaneously is harder than it sounds. Gilliard delivered all of it, every single week for 8 years. And the two developed a genuine off-screen friendship that translated directly into what you saw on camera, in ways that you cannot manufacture or fake, no matter how good your director is. But here is the thing worth sitting with. That chemistry was not guaranteed. It was not inevitable. It was the result of a casting process that could have gone in a completely different direction. And if it had, Walker Texas Ranger might have been a fundamentally different show than the one we actually got. Also, and I will never stop being delighted by this, the man who helped coordinate a fictional terrorist takeover of a Los Angeles skyscraper in 1988 spent the following 8 years upholding law and order in the state of Texas. That is a career arc. That is a whole journey. Theo to Trivette. Nobody talks about that enough. The Ranger headquarters featured in Walker, Texas Ranger was not a Hollywood backlot construction. The show filmed extensively at real locations in the Dallas and Fort Worth area, and the production made a genuine effort to ground the show visually in actual Texas geography. This sounds like a small thing, but it isn't. A lot of shows set in specific cities don't actually look like those cities. They look like Los Angeles wearing a costume. Walker genuinely looked like Texas because it was Texas. The production built a strong local presence over its run, employing local crew, utilizing local locations, and becoming a genuine part of the Dallas-Fort Worth television landscape. This regional authenticity was something the show's producers pointed to with real pride, and it contributed to the show's identity in ways that went beyond just scenery. When Walker drove down a Texas highway or walked into a Dallas building, it felt real because it was real. And for a show built around the mythology of the Texas Rangers, one of America's most storied law enforcement institutions, that authenticity mattered. You can't fake Texas to Texans. They will absolutely notice, and they did notice, which is part of why the show became such a point of regional pride. This one is genuinely fascinating to me. When Walker Texas Ranger was in development, CBS executives pushed hard for Walker to have a defined, ongoing romantic relationship built into the show from the very beginning. Their reasoning was pretty standard network logic. Romance creates emotional investment. Emotional investment keeps viewers coming back. It's the will they won't, a formula that had been powering television since roughly the invention of the medium. Chuck Norris pushed back hard. His vision for Walker was a man who was defined by his code, his work, and his heritage, not by a romantic storyline. He felt that putting Walker in a conventional TV romance would soften the character in ways that undermined what made him compelling. Now, the show did eventually develop the relationship between Walker and attorney Alex Cahill, played by Sherry J. Wilson, over the course of its run. And that slow burn became one of the show's most beloved elements. But the key word there is slow. It took years for that relationship to develop in any meaningful way. And that was very much by design. Norris held the line on keeping Walker emotionally self-contained for a long time before allowing that storyline to evolve. And honestly, he was right. The restraint is exactly what made the eventual payoff land. Sometimes the network executives don't know best. I know. Try not to be too shocked. Alright, here is one that is going to make you watch old episodes very differently. Walker, Texas Ranger recycle fight sequences. Not constantly, and not in a way that was immediately obvious to casual viewers, but if you watched the show closely and consistently across multiple seasons, you started to notice certain combinations, certain moves, certain camera setups appearing again and again in slightly different contexts. Now, to be fair, this was not entirely unusual for action television of the era. Fight choreography is expensive, time-consuming, and physically demanding. When you're producing over 20 episodes a season for 8 consecutive years, you are going to develop a vocabulary of reliable sequences that work on camera and can be executed safely and efficiently. Walker, Texas Ranger leaned into that vocabulary pretty heavily. To a significant number of people who wanted to feel like a Texas Ranger on their morning commute to an office job in suburban America. And you know what? I completely understand those people. The production had a core team of stunt coordinators who developed a kind of house style for action sequences. And that house style became very recognizable to anyone paying close attention. The roundhouse kick was the signature, obviously. But beyond that signature move, there were patterns, combinations, setups that showed up across wildly different episodes with slightly different costuming and different villains at the receiving end. Is it laziness? Is it efficiency? Is it Chuck Norris establishing a consistent martial arts philosophy across 8 years of television? I'll let you decide, but start watching for it. You're welcome. And also, I'm sorry. Number 5, a major cast member left under mysterious circumstances. Sherry J. Wilson, who played Alex Cahill, Walker's longtime love interest and one of the show's most important recurring characters, departed Walker, Texas Ranger, at the end of season 8. And the circumstances around her exit were, to put it diplomatically, not entirely transparent. Wilson had been with the show since the very beginning, and her departure came as a genuine surprise to many viewers who had invested in the Walker and Alex relationship across the entire run of the series. The official explanation was the standard creative differences and contractual language that Hollywood deploys whenever it doesn't want to explain what actually happened. Wilson herself was measured in public comments about the departure, which in the celebrity interview universe is usually a sign that there is more to the story than anyone is officially telling. What is clear is that her exit reshaped the final chapter of the show in significant ways and left a visible hole that the production handled with varying degrees of success. The Walker and Alex relationship had been the emotional backbone of the series for years. Removing that dynamic in the show's final stretch was a bold creative decision, or a forced logistical one, depending on whose version of events you find more persuasive. Either way, it remains one of the more genuinely puzzling behind-the-scenes stories from the show's history. And unlike some TV mysteries, this one never really got a satisfying resolution for fans who cared about it. Number 4. The show tackled topics no other CBS drama would touch here is something that gets undersold in conversations about Walker, Texas Ranger. For a show that could very easily have been dismissed as straightforward action television, it tackles some remarkably heavy subject matter over the course of its run. We're talking about episodes dealing with child abuse, domestic violence, gang recruitment of minors, drug addiction, racism, and Native American rights, among other things. And it didn't always handle these topics with the subtlety of a prestige drama, because it wasn't a prestige drama. But it addressed them consistently and with a genuine moral seriousness that a lot of its Saturday night competition never came close to. Chuck Norris reportedly pushed for the show to engage with real social issues rather than just delivering pure escapist action week after week. He wanted Walker to mean something. And while the show's approach to these topics was sometimes blunt and occasionally heavy-handed, in the way that 1990s network television tended to be, the fact that it engaged with them at all was significant. A lot of shows in Walker's time slot wouldn't have gone near domestic violence storylines or episodes exploring the exploitation of Native American communities. Walker went there regularly. The very special episode format that networks deployed cautiously and awkwardly throughout the era was something Walker leaned into with a real commitment to using the show's platform for something beyond roundhouse kicks. Which again, I want to be clear, there were also a lot of roundhouse kicks, but there was more going on than that. Number 3, Walker's finale. Left fans completely divided. The series finale of Walker, Texas Ranger, which aired in May of 2001 after 8 seasons, is one of those episodes that people who watched it remember clearly, and people who care about television endings have strong opinions about. And those opinions are not unified. The finale brought Walker and Alex's long-running relationship to a conclusion, and attempted to wrap up the show's core emotional threads in a single hour. Whether it succeeded depends entirely on who you ask. Fans who felt the finale delivered on the show's promises pointed to the emotional payoff of the Walker and Alex storyline and the sense of closure it provided for a relationship that had been the heart of the series for years. Fans who were disappointed pointed to the rushed pacing, the storylines that felt underdeveloped given the weight of what the episode was trying to accomplish, and the sense that a show that had run for over 200 episodes deserved a bigger, more ambitious send-off than it got. Both groups have reasonable points. Series finales are almost impossibly hard to get right, and Walker's finale was working against the additional complication of Sherry Wilson's earlier departure and the audience adjustments that came with it. What's interesting is that the finale conversation never entirely went away, which brings us conveniently to number 2. Number 2. The Walker reunion movie was almost never made. After the series ended in 2001, there was genuine appetite among fans for some kind of continuation. The show had run for 8 years, had built a deeply loyal audience, and left enough unresolved emotional threads that a reunion project made obvious sense. CBS and the producers knew this. The problem was getting all the moving parts to align, which in Hollywood is always the part that turns obvious ideas into development limbo. Trial by Fire, the Walker, Texas Ranger reunion movie that eventually aired in October of 2005, came together after a period of behind-the-scenes negotiation that reportedly came close to falling apart more than once. Getting the cast back together, locking down a story that justified the reunion rather than just trading on nostalgia, and navigating the contractual and scheduling realities of actors who had moved on to other projects all took longer and proved more complicated than it probably looked from the outside. The fact that it happened at all is actually a minor television miracle, and the reunion delivered solid ratings for CBS, proving that the Walker audience had not gone anywhere in the 4 years since the finale. They were just waiting, patiently, in Texas. Probably in a Ram truck. Number 1. Chuck Norris, personally funded. Part of the show. And here we are at number 1, which is also the fact that I find most genuinely remarkable about Walker, Texas Ranger's behind-the-scenes history. There were points during the show's run, particularly in its earlier seasons when the renewal future was less certain and budget pressures were real, where Chuck Norris personally invested money to keep the production at the quality level he believed it needed to maintain. Now, this is not something that gets widely reported, and Norris himself has not turned it into a major public talking point, which is honestly very on brand for a man whose entire television persona was built around doing the right thing and not needing credit for it. But the picture that emerges from people who worked on the show is of a star who was not just the face of Walker, Texas Ranger, but was genuinely invested in it, in every sense of that word. Creative investment, personal investment, financial investment when necessary. For Chuck Norris, Walker was not a paycheck. It was a project he believed in and was willing to protect with his own resources when the situation called for it. Think about that in the context of the modern television landscape, where stars are frequently just hired talent with limited creative stakes in what they're making. Norris was the opposite of that. He was producing, co-writing theme songs, approving scripts, and when it came down to it, writing checks. 8 seasons, over 200 episodes, more than a decade of Saturday nights. And behind all of it was one man who wanted to make a show that meant something and was willing to do whatever it took to make sure it did. That's not a Chuck Norris joke. That's just the truth. And that is our countdown. 15 facts about Walker, Texas Ranger, that most people never knew. Now look, I could sit here and do 15 more because this show has layers that people genuinely do not give it credit for. But we'll save some of that for another time. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. It takes about half a second, and it genuinely helps the channel more than you'd think. And subscribe to Old TV Cinema if you haven't already, because we cover forgotten gems, behind-the-scenes secrets, and the strange hidden history of the television era that shaped a generation. We're here every week, we're not going anywhere. And neither, apparently, was Chuck Norris. Thanks for watching.